Welcome to the Tzorba Abanon Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzorba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzorba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzorba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzorbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Okay, we are up to our next topic here in Tzurba Meir Abanon series on Hilchot Shabbos. We're in the Tzurba Meir Abanon series, the Lax family edition of all of these volumes. Volume 19, the Aaron family volume, which is continuous Hilchot Shabbos. We spoke a lot about food preparation. We spoke about borer and tochen and lush. And we spoke about last time about opening packages and the like. So now we move away from the kitchen, or maybe different parts of the kitchen, and we move to the floor. Today's shiur will be about floor maintenance on Shabbos, maybe some halachot that not all of us are aware of in terms of sweeping the floor and washing the floor. Obviously, washing the floor would only be allowed in a way that does not violate the issur of schita, of squeezing something out. But what if I'm doing it in a way, I'm just going to wash the floor, put water on it, and scrub it a little bit with a non-absorbent? Is there any issue with washing the floor, sweeping the floor, flattening the floor? So let's see what the halachas say. We're in Shiur number 6 in this volume. We will start on page 255. Again, Tzurba Meir Abanon, volume number 19, page 255. Today's topic is floor maintenance on Shabbos. So the Gemara tells us that in the days of old, remember, there were dirt floors. And maintenance of dirt floors, of sandy floors, is what they used to do. You have to sprinkle what's called a rebutz in the Gemara. You sprinkle water, which keeps the dust down. That's part of it. And sweeping it, and sweeping the floor. So is that allowed on Shabbos? What would be the malacha? Which of the 39? So Rabbi Eliezer says, this is a malacha daraisa on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, source number 1, Tana Rabbanan. Shabbos tafsadi hey. Hamachabed vahamerabet, somebody who sweeps the floor, somebody who sprinkles water on the floor. Shagag b'Shabbos chayav chatas. Remember, chayav chatas always means ki. It's a daraisa. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if one does that b'shogig on Shabbos, one's chayav a carbon chatas, and b'mezid b'yantif lo karbam. If one does it b'mezid on yantif, there's malchus. That's an isser daraisa of floor maintenance. Which malacha? Maybe it's choresh. Plowing doesn't only mean getting it ready for the putting a seed in, but any type of floor maintenance which gets it ready theoretically. If it's inside the house, the Gemara says maybe it's bona. If it's outside the house, maybe it's chorish. But that would be a malacha daraisa, says Rabbi Eliezer. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say no. And most this is a derabanan. This is not a daraisa of choresh, right? This is a isser derabanan, because if I do this, I might like sprinkle, and I might notice, or I might sweep, and I might notice that there's a little bump in the floor, there's a little hole in the floor, and I might come to smooth it out. And smoothing it out, hashvoye gumos, as is called in the Gemara, that's a problem. If I do that, but just sweeping itself is not the malacha. I might come to that, and that's why the Rabbanan say it is an isser derabanan of ashvuye gumos. The Gemara does say on the same daf that there is a limit. Meir, the Gemara says now in source number 2, Shara zilcha b'mechuzah. He allowed it. He allowed the sprinkling in mechuzah. Amar taima my amar Abanon. What's the reason that the Rabbanan say? The Rabbanan say it's an issa d'Rabbanan. Dilma azla gumos. You might come to smooth the ground. That's why you're not allowed to sprinkle. But Meir said hacha leka gumos. Meir says here in mechuzah all the floors are stone. There's no issue, and therefore Meir says he allowed the sprinkling because there were no dirt floors in the area. Tana isha chachama marbetzes beis b'Shabbos, says the Gemara. A smart woman could sprinkle on Shabbos, right, in their house, even with dirt floors. Why? What would she do? So the Rashi there explains, the Mefarshim explain that if she sprinkles, she washes dishes. So she washes dishes in one area of the house and one area of the house. Every time you wash dishes, some of the water goes on the floor. So if you do that, so then by the end, you've had water over your whole floor, even though that wasn't your kavana. Says the Gemara, even lechanchila, one is allowed to do this. One is allowed to do what? One is allowed to perform an act. We know we spoke about in our Hakdama Shiurim, the Machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says if I do an act, there might or might not cause a malacha. That's still usher. That's Rabbi Yehuda Shita. And we pass on like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says if I do a davar she'eino miskavein, something that might not cause a malacha at all, it's mutter to do. And that's what the Gemara says here, that according to Rabbi Shimon, there is no problem doing this activity of sprinkling or sweeping. Sprinkling, start. What about sweeping? Does this kula apply to sweeping as well? So the Gemara seems to say elsewhere, Kuf Chav Daled, in source number 3, that a broom is somewhat muktzeh. And why would a broom be muktzeh? Meaning not allowed to handle a broom on Shabbos. L'chara, that will be because it is what we call a kli shemalachto le'isser. We didn't discuss muktzeh at length yet, Bezrat Hashem, in future shiurim, but we know there are many types of muktzahs. There's muktzah machbas chesron kiss, something is expensive and you would never use it for anything else. Muktzah machbas gufo inherently has no purpose. Money, right? Muktzah machbas, muktzah machbas mitzvah is a different kind of muktzah. Many times of muktzah, nolad. But there's something called kli shemalachto le'isser, a kli that's usually used for an isser. As we're about to see, that is not really muktzah. That's the gzeira of tiltul kalim. It was made at a different stage of history, and the Gemara Masechah Shabbos discusses. And also, even though normal muktzah, you can't move directly at all. You can maybe move it with your elbow, tiltul manatzad, ayde davar acher, but kli shemalachto le'isser, a pen, a stapler, a scissors, all of those are mutter to move directly if it's tzorach guf or tzorach makomo. If you want to use it for a mutter purpose, or you need the spot where it is, you're allowed to pick it up directly. If there's a pen on the table, you want to put a plate down there, you can pick up the pen, you can pick up the crayon directly, and then move it away on Shabbos. You don't have to use your elbow. That's a kli shemalachto le'isser. So that reflects the fact that you could do that with that kli and not with any other muktzah, reflects that it's not really muktzah. It's a different category. But the Gemara says, Shabbos Kuf Chav Daled, source number 3. If somebody has a broom made of milsa, of a garment, mutter l'taltalim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to move it on Shabbos. Aval shel timra, but if it is made of a date palm, like a lulav, you can't move it. Rabbi Lazar Amar Afal shel timra. Rabbi Lazar says, no, you can even move timra. What's the issue? What kind of broom are we talking about? But Mayaskinan asked the Gemara, why are you moving? Why do you want to move this broom? If you want to move this broom because you want to use the broom for something mutter or gufo or makomo, you need the spot where the broom is. Then Bahal Lema Rav Shal Timra Lo, there Rav says you can't move a broom made of the palm branches. Why not? Vaha Rav Karabas Virale. We hold that you're allowed to move a kli shemalachto le'isser for l'sorach gufo, l'sorach makomo, for its own purpose, if you want to use it for a mutter way, or for the spot. It must be, what are we talking about here? You want to move it for its own protection. Because there's a kli shemalachto le'isser, you have a fancy pen on the table in your backyard, and you don't want it to get stolen. So you want to move it, why? For its own good. That is not allowed for direct movement, even by a kli shemalachto le'isser. So you have to figure out a different way to move it, possibly. So mechamal itzel. So the Gemara says, Bahal Emer Rabbi Lazar Afshal Timra. Here, Rabbi Lazar would say you could move it directly. What do you mean? Why should that be? So it should be usser if it's mechamal itzel. So La'olam, the Gemara ends up saying mechamal itzel. Ema v'chinam Rabbi Lazar. No, it's mechamal itzel. The reason that it's usser is because it's mechamal itzel. You're moving it for its own purpose. But what do you see from the whole Gemara? A broom is called a kli shemalachto le'isser. What's the isser? Sweeping. That's what you use a broom for. So doesn't this Gemara seem to say that sweeping is going to be usher? What do you mean sweeping is going to be usher? Didn't we say Rabbi Shimon, davar she'eino miskavein mutter? So there are different girsos in the Gemara. If you look in the Bahag, he has a different girsa in the Gemara, where Rabbi Lazar allows it, and it's not even a kli shemalachto le'isser. And the Rif also has that. The Rif also has that girsa in source number 5. The Rif, the great posting, Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi, one of the earliest, right? Rif Rush Rambam, or Rif Rambam Rush, in that order, says the Rif, Idna the Kaimelon Rabbi Shimon, Davar she'eino miskavein mutter, Havilu machbedo shel timra, davar shemalachto le'heter. Since you pass like Rabbi Shimon, and therefore sweeping is not an usher malacha. Sweeping is a davar she'eino miskavein. Maybe it will smooth the holes, maybe not. But because it's davar she'eino miskavein, it's mutter, so it's not a kli shemalachto le'isser. Afilu mechamal itzel. So the Bahag and the Rif matir, sweeping a dirt floor on Shabbos. If you actively smooth directly, but if you're sweeping, you're just trying to get the dirt. So that might make it smooth, might not make it smooth. Mutter, according to Rabbi Shimon. According to Rashi, no. According to Rashi in the Gemara says no. Even Rabbi Shimon would agree here, because when you sweep, you are for sure smoothing, and therefore that's what's called psik reisha, not just Darvish and Miskabe. It says Rashi there, Kuf Chav Dalit, source number 6. I'm on page 257. Shaltimer Kein Shalanu Lachabedas Abayas to Aser Mishamash Gumos. When you sweep a dirt floor, that is the malacha. That is the malacha of smoothing the ground. So we have the Rif and the Bahag that say it's mutter to sweep a dirt floor on Shabbos. Rashi says no, that's psik reisha, that's aser. Aser, you're going to make the holes. If you look in Tosfos, Tosfos has a second reason. We're going to have three. 3 reasons why sweeping a dirt floor on Shabbos is going to be aser. According to Rashi, it's for sure going to smooth the ground, and therefore it's not a Darvish Miskavein, it's a psik reisha. Tosfos, Shabbos Tzadihei says no, there's a totally different reason why sweeping a dirt floor on Shabbos is going to be a problem. Forget the ground. What about the dirt that you're moving? Says Tosfos, Elavade, where it's bold-faced, Kibud asur l'kule alma. Even Rabbi Shimon, mipnei shemezes afar mimkomo. You're moving dirt. Dirt is muktzeh. You are moving dirt on Shabbos. Right, the Gemara in the beginning of Beitza talks about taking dirt that's muktzeh for kisi hadam. So how do you do that? Do you designate it beforehand? But if you didn't have any dirt designated, but that's Tosa Shita number 2. Why would it be usher to sweep a dirt floor on Shabbos? Number 1, because of Hashviyah Gumotz Rashi. Tosfos, because Maize is Afar. Maize is Afar. The Mordechai explains, and the Sharat Tzion adds that Velo Biru Divrehem, the Chavetz Chaim says. Right, sometimes it's not clear whether the issue is moving dirt, or you're making a hole, or you're filling in a hole, right? But both of those are true. Yet both issues when it comes to sweeping the floor. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'yired the travayu isnahu. Right, 2 issues by sweeping a dirt floor. Right, it itself is smoothing, filling in holes, knocking down holes, making it flat, or mezes uffer. The Rambam has a third shita, a third reason why it's usher. Says the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbos, va'asur lachabed esakarka. I'm in source number 9 now, on page 259. Asur lachabed esakarka shema yishve gumos. What is shema yishve? You actively might forget. You might be sweeping and then see a bump, and therefore you might come to sweep. You might come to sweep because you want it. You'll forget for a second. You want it smooth. Shema yishve gumos el imkein hayarotzu bavanim, unless it's made of stone, as we will talk about. But that's the Rambam you might come to. By the way, this is not our topic here, quoted here, but the poskim discuss whenever you play a game. Let's say you're playing a game where something rolls on the floor. That's a problem. Playing a game outdoors on a grass or dirt, anything, where something rolls on the floor, that's a gzeira d'Rabbanan, and you can't play that kind of game. Shemla ba'asi l'shvuyah gumos. Like this Rambam. Playing, I don't know, kickball, soccer, besides let's say little kids even. You want to teach them, right? Playing a catch is different, right? But it has marbles outside on the grass, right? Because you want to play the game properly, and therefore Shema Shvuyah Gumos. So that's based on this Rambam. Again, 3 reasons why sweeping a dirt floor on Shabbos might be usher. Remember, the Rif and the Bahag say it's mutter. Rashi says psik reisha, that you're going to smooth. And Tosfos says mezes afar. And the Rambam says you might forget and come to fill in. Says the Sefer HaTruma, one of the less known Rishonim, but it was quoted by all the later Rishonim, says the Sefer HaTruma, even sweeping a stone floor where none of these chashas apply, gzeira, you might get mixed up with a non-stone floor, with a dirt floor. Against the Rambam that we just saw. Right, the Rambam that we just saw said, Elam Kein Hayaratzu Ba'avanim. But the Sefer HaTruma says in source number 10, Afilu Ba'ay Sheish La Ritzpas Avanim. Even if you have a house with a stone floor, Asur L'chabed. It's Asur to sweep the Shayach Lashviyah Gumas Ben Ashuros. According to the Sefer HaTruma, sweeping our dining rooms. Sweeping in our dining rooms after you eat lunch, Sefer HaTruma says that will be Asur. You can't sweep because you might come to sweep on a dirt floor. Ben Arovdin, number 2, he says 2 chashos. Number 1, maybe between the stones there's some dirt that you might come to smooth. Again, it might be depending on the mitzias. The shayach hashviyah gumas ben ashuros, ben arovdin lachalapachos, o midirabanan, o gzer bayis she'ein la ritzpa. So again, To summarize, before we see the actual halacha, right? We have the bahag and the rif that matir, sweeping an earthen floor on Shabbos because davar she'eino miskavein. Rashi says asur because sweeping earthen floor is exalfa shviya gumos. Tosfos, you're moving the dirt. The Rambam, you might come to actively fill in a hole. The poskin, the Rambam says, but on a stone floor there is no issue, but the Sefer Truma says it would be an issue. Says the Beis Yosef, Ula inyan halacha, kivan sha Rambam v'harash maskimim le'asor lachabed karka she'eina merutzav hachi naktinan. Since the Rambam and the Rosh and most Rishonim argue on the Rif and the Bahag that it's asur to sweep a dirt floor. You can't sweep. Ela imkain hu makom shepashan aminag lahatir. Unless there's a minag to be matir. It's a Isser Durabanan, and it wasn't a Gzeira mentioned. So there's a minag in a whole place to sweep. To keep it to be the Durabanan, there's a rif, there's a bahag, then it would be okay. But karka merutzav, if it's a paved floor, stone floor, for sure, it is mutter in that case. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Also, l'chaved abayis elam kein hakarka merutzav. You don't make the Gzeira of the Sefer HaTruma. Right, it's usher though on a dirt floor. And the Shulchan Aruch says, but remember, there is a shita out there that even if it's not merutzaf, is going to be mutter. That is the bahag and the rif. If you look in the Ramah, v'yesh machmir nafil b'merutzav. Ramah says no. Maybe that Sefer HaTruma is right. Maybe the Sefer HaTruma is right. If you sweep here, you might come to sweep there. Maybe people have different floors. They have the floor of their house, the floor of their barn, and you might get confused. And if you're matir this, you might matir that. So says the Ramah, v'yesh machmir nafil b'merutzav v'chein nogin ve'en lashanos. Whoa, the minag is like the Sefer HaTruma ve'en lashanos. Oh, okay, if somebody has non-Jewish help, then they can sweep their floor on Shabbos through mutter. Right, if you're not using a regular broom, and it's not mashve gumos. So says the Mishnah Brura, right? Why is it mutter if you ask a non-Jew? Because it's pashtus of davar she'eino miskavein. Maybe like the other sheet, it's not like Rashi. And even if it's a psik reisha day enu Yehudi is mutter we paskint. Amir la'akim day enu Yehudi, but you're not telling him to be mashve gumos. You're just telling him to sweep the floor, and therefore that will be allowed. So that's the Mishnah Brura. Why is it asur? The mace is offer mimkomo. V'chulu enu Yehudi mutter. See in source 14, Sifkat and Yud. Hainu afilu b'sheina merutzaf. So even dirt is allowed with a guy. Taha hu einu miskavi rak lachabed abayis. He only has kavanah to sweep. He doesn't have kavanah to smooth. V'yavtu psik reisha linyan gumos. Even if psik reisha mutter. Amir la'akum psik reisha is mutter. That's what we've said in the past. So halacha l'maisa, the Ramah Ashkenazim, how do we sweep our floors? Comes along the Bir Halacha and the Shmir Shabbos and says our Mitzias is different. Even the Sefer HaTruma might agree with it today. Maybe, unclear. But at least we don't have to be machmer like that. The Ramah would for sure say 95% of our floors are stone, are tiled, are not dirt. So you're going to make a Gzeira 95% up to 5%. That's like a low plug. A low plug, usually low plug is you add the 5% to the 95%. You don't add the 95 to the 5%. So says the Bir Halacha already 100 years ago in source number 15. V'yesh machmir nafilu b'merutzaf ayin Mishnah Brura. That time we shouldn't gazrin on merutzaf ato ena merutzaf. When we say for our truma, as we mentioned, the truma is the one that says that we have such a gzeira. Hine lafizeh im kol batei ha'ir o al kol panim rubam merutzafim ba'avanim o b'lavanim. If almost all the houses, the floors are tiled with bricks or stone, v'kolshkim him mechusim v'krashim with boards, efshar demuter lachabed the lo gazra aruba b'bnei miyuta. Very important. So the whole sugi is different bisman hazeh. You read up until through the Shulchan Aruch, you see you can't sweep in your house on Shabbos. Right? Gzeira. Says the Bir Halacha, if most of the houses don't have dirt floors, it's mutter. V'lo al ir zu mipnei ir acheres u'kamosha kasavnu b'sefer HaTruma. And then he says, what about the other? The Sefer HaTruma says, Gzeira atu dirt floors, or maybe even in between these tiles. Our floors don't have that either. We don't have dirt in between the tiles, even between the stones. We don't have that. And therefore, there is no issue. Muktzeh and Lachush, there's no dirt. There's no dirt, and therefore it will be mutter. And that's what the Shmir Shabbos says also in source number 16. Asr l'tateya makam shinem rutzaf. Sweeping. If somebody is eating outdoors, they have their sukkah in their backyard, and they want to sweep the floor, and the outdoors is dirt or grass, that's usher. That's usher d'Rabbanan at least to sweep under the table after sukkahs, after the meal. You want to sweep? That's usher if it's not a paved or a stone floor. Again, the Rif and the Bahag, you might have a heter, but most Rishonim say it's usher. Imrova batim, if most houses in a place, I know once lives in a third world country, that most houses have dirt floors, they don't be usher, even on a non-dirt floor. That's true. V'hachatzer, but outside is usher, but look what the Ramah says. What about, the Shmir Shabbos says, so what about if you have a patio, you have a deck, you let us sweep that? Let us sweep that. So again, so you might, it's like a house, right? We don't make such zeros. No, but now you're outside. Says the Shmir Shabbos, that could be a problem because most outdoor space is not tiled. The Chatzer Asher Lo Tatei Afilu Muktzeh. Says the Shmir Shabbos, on top of the Shmir Shabbos, an outdoor deck or porch should not be swept because most yards are not paved. A sukkah outdoors, you could pick stuff up from the ground, pieces of food that fell down, but regular sweeping would be usher. Even if it is tiled. So is there any heter? Rav Shlomo Zalman. In the footnotes, the Shmir Shabbos quotes, Rav Shlomo Zalman said maybe nowadays you could look at the deck as an extension of the house. And therefore, you don't say, most yards. Is your deck more your yard or is your deck more your house? What is it an extension of? Says the Shmir Shabbos, V'shamati B'gon Rav Shlomo Zalman, T'itachin Dimrova Batem Rutzafim, Ki Az Roem Es Achatza HaMerutzefes, Kehemshech Labayis HaMerutzaf. It's a hemshech of the bias. Gamimena Makura, even if it's not covered, below Gazrina Chatza Merutzefes, Atushina Merutzefes, and therefore the Shmir Shlomo Zalman is makel to sweep outdoors, even if it's as long as it's tiled. And the Rav Avadia also in source 18 says the same thing. He quotes his Bir Halacha, She'efshar shebizman hazeh shekal habatim rutzafim. Bizman hazeh, where all of our houses are tiled. Delo shliach klal karka shenimrusa babatim. You don't have the dirt, so ein makom ligzar. You don't make such a gzeira. And then he quotes even outdoors, and he says v'chein b'din lahakel. Right? I think there's you can be makel kivish svek sveka, as the Ravadia often says. Right? Maybe the shita, maybe this is included in the bias, and even if it's outdoors, maybe we pass like the other shitas lakula. That's Rav Ovadia classic type of psak. And just the last source in this section, the Kol Elio, Rav Mordechai Elio says, and even though the Gemara talks about sometimes not using certain brooms because it's a secretion that pieces will fall off, our brooms generally the pieces don't fall off. It's not that type of those types of brooms that would have that breaking issue of makalkel, and therefore no problem of that. Ein makom lahachmir b'titua habayis b'Shabbos. V'gamein lachush l'shviras hamatateh. You don't have to be worried about the breaking of the broom. Kib bizmanon, like in their homes, in their times. Shamatateh haya asu mikash. It was made of straw. Shematatimbo akash nishbar used to break. Avot kayom, they're chazakim, and you don't have to worry. And you see on page 264, you have a summary of everything that we have said. Great charts. You have it right there in front of you. So that's in terms of sweeping the floor on Shabbos. Indoors, outdoors, dirt, tiled. What about washing the floor? So washing the floor. So now it's an issue of what? Libun? You're not cleaning dirt, right? So is it the same issue? So let's see. And interestingly, we'll see there is more chumrah in this regard when it comes to washing the floor, as we'll see, because it's not as much of a need. I mean, how many people wash their floors on Shabbos? It's not as common as you sweep after you ate. But unless there's a major stain, it could be that you can wait till after Shabbos. You wash the floor after Shabbos. So let's see. And also, washing the floor is a little tricky with the schita issues. You can't use a regular mop, right? You can't use a regular shmata with that's wet and squeezing. So what do you do? So, but again, let's say you want to wash it in a mutter way. So the Gemara says in Shabbos, Taf Kuf Nun Aleph seems to be a chumrah. V'amar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda was a Talmud of Rav, and after Rav died, he became a Talmud of Shmuel. Rav Yehuda the Amora, not to be confused with Rebbe Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi the Tana. So Shmuel says, Ma'isa b'Talmudish Rabbi Meir, Shinich Lazach Lebeis HaMerchatz. A Talmud followed Rebbe to the mikvah, Bikish L'Aliyah Karka, and he wanted to wash the ground, wanted to rinse the ground. Amar Lo Ein Madichin. Nope. L'Asur B'Karka. I want to smear the ground with some oil. Amar ein sachin. Karka pakarka michlafa. If you do it here, then you might have to do it outside, and that would be like smoothing the ground and getting it ready. So you see from the Gemara, Meir beferish. No need to say for a truma. Meir beferish aser to washing a tiled surface. You might come to wash and smooth a dirt surface, right? And the Rambam passes that way. Ein sachin as akarka afilu ayratzu bavanim. You can't smear the ground with liquid even if it's tiled. 1 second. This is the same Rambam that said a couple of minutes ago, right? If you look back in source number 9, the Rambam says you're allowed to sweep as long as it is tiled. As long as it's tiled. And here he's saying washing the floor, aser gzeira, tiled, atu not tiled. Ein tzochan zakarka afilu ayratzu bavanim. Ve'nofchen oso ve'medichen oso nafilu b'yom tov. Kol shekem b'Shabbos. Why? Like the Rambam said before, we're worried that you might come to, fill in the holes. So how do you put these two Rambams together? This is the Rambam Perakaf Aleph Halacha Gimel. Same halacha. Says the Maggid Mishnah, it must be that sweeping is more of a need. So within the world of Isurei D'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan weren't goes there by sweeping, but they were goes there by washing. Says the Maggid Mishnah, Upirish L'daito. Even though sweeping, you don't make such a gzera, and as long as it's styled, it's mutter to sweep. It's not as much of a need. Not as much of a need. And therefore, says the Maggid Mishnah, Imshad of the Rambam, he's more machmer by washing, and the Shulchan Aruch follows suit. Ein sachin es akarka, 23, v'lo madichin oso, afilu hu merutzaf. And again, it's more chamor. It's more chamor. Also explains the Mishnah Berurah. When you wash the floor, you might come to smooth, and even on a tile floor where it goes there, mishum a non-tile floor. I feel him on the shari kibud b'Shabbos. Even those who might matter sweeping the shiny hacha, even she wrote liyapos as a karka. Here you are dafka doing it. Why are you washing the floor? You're doing something for the floor. At least by sweeping, you just want to get the dirt off the floor. Here your kavana is to do something for the floor, so it might be more chamor. Right, might be more chamor in this case. So lamaisa, washing your floor on Shabbos. Again, generally the regular washing the floor is a problem because of schita. But even if without the schita issue, there seems to be a problem here of washing the floor. Unless, says Rabbi Tzion Abishol in source in Orla Tzion, in source 25, if there's a tzarach gadol to wash, so then one can be meko on a stone floor. On a stone floor or a tiled floor, one can be meko if there is a real tzarech. Because, again, put together that the gzeira today ought to the miut, the minority of dirt floors. Ulam, it's really dirty. You had a bunch of people over, somebody spilled wine on the floor and it's sticky. Go wash the floor. So again, we're going to get to doing one spot is not even washing the floor. That might be mutter anyway. You pour water and you rub it with a paper towel. So where it's very dirty, you could rinse it. The Maggid Mishnah says because it's not so needed. Here it is needed. The whole reason that we're not gozer right over there. Why weren't we gozer by kibud by sweeping? Because sweeping is more needed. So here, this real dirt, it's really dirty. So that's like a real need. And therefore, we wouldn't be machmir. Or at a hospital, you have to make sure to keep it sterile. Dina kedin kibud, and therefore it can be meko. It's such a small gzera. In a case where it is needed. Obviously, as long as you're not doing it with achshas chita, you're doing it with like the mop thing with the non-absorbent thing on the bottom, and you don't put a shmata there, or else that would be an issue of schita. And the Aruch Shabbos also discusses here in terms of gzeiras back and forth. We said before, one spot that might not be even included in the gzeira. You look at the next source on page 268. The Shmir Shabbos tells us efshar. Even if you want to be machmir, but this isn't washing the floor. This is washing a stain off of a spot. Again, if it's on a stone dirt floor, then you have to be more worried. But here, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman says that's not. The din zed nemar rak b'makam rutzaf, as we've said. If you have a spill on the floor, a stain on the floor, you can wash it. You can wash it, says Rabbi Shlomo Zalman. And Rav Avadia also is makel here. And he also adds, and what about a counter? So you want to wash your counters. You can wash your counters, again, all in a mutter way. Use paper towels. Don't squeeze so hard. So Rav Avadia also says counters are not a problem. That's not washing the floor. You can pour water on that. You can pour water and then push the water into the sink, or push the water on if it's on the floor. Washing the counters. That's not like ground. Where did we have this months ago about counters being ground? If you remember way back when in the Shiur on Hachzara, we spoke about the 5 conditions of Hachzara, about it has to be fully cooked, it has to be a covered fire, it has to still be not nitztanim legamre, and then the other 2, don't put it down and daito lahachzir. Don't put it down. The Gemara's lashon was karka. What if it does have to be in your hand? Just don't put it down on the floor. What about counters? So we spoke there about whether counters have the status of karka or not. So here, Rav Avadia says for our issue, counters do not have the status of karka. And the Rav Nissim Kirelis also mentions here he does not even pushing water back and forth. But either way, Rav Avadia, the Shmir Shabbos are makel in that regard. One final discussion to have relating to floor maintenance on Shabbos. We spoke about sweeping. We spoke about washing. What about dragging? Dragging on earthen floors. So that is the classic case that's mentioned in the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, the case of Greira. The Gemara says, Halacha Greira, dragging a bench across the dirt field. So if it's a very heavy bench and very soft earth, and I know I'm going to make a ridge when I pull it, that's called psikresha. That's moder psikresha for sure. But what if it's not? It's not so heavy. It's medium, and maybe I won't make a ridge. That's the machlokas. That's the machlokas in Shabbos Chav Beis. Rav Amar ein halacha Rishim begreira. V'Shmuel Amar halacha Rishim begreira. We pass him like Shmuel. Halacha like Reb Shimon begreira. We pass him like Reb Shimon. And we paskin, the Gemara says elsewhere, Shabbos Chavtes, that even a small bench, which you have another option, right? Is Darshan Miskavin Mutter if you have another option? Says the Gemara, yes. A small bench you could carry. But no, you want to drag it, which might cause a ridge, might not cause a ridge. It's still Mutter. Rabbi Shimon holds Darshan Miskavin is Mutter. Reish Kinish to the Batzra, Garas Afsala. The head of the Kinishta, that might be a shul or just a gathering in Batzra, you drag the bench above Rabbi Yirmiyah Abraba. I'm like, come on, Rabbi Shimon. You go like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon Miskavin. Rabbi Shimon said that if there's no other choice, you have a huge bench, to low Efshar, Piktanimi Amar, by a small one. So, and the Gemara ends up saying, yeah. Even a small one. Rabbi Shimon Miskavin is mutter, even l'chadchila. Again, a huge topic about how to define Rabbi Shimon Miskavin Psikresha. The Gemara there, which you have in the continuation of Source 31, about the Mishnah in Kilayim. Mochrei ksus, people who want to sell their clothing. So sometimes they wear it in order to show their wares, show their clothing, and sometimes you could be wearing Kilayim. But that's mutter, the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, because Davar Shem Miskavin. Is that Davar Shem Miskavin? It's Psikresha, it's for sure. Okay, the Gemara talks about that. But either way, the Shulchan Aruch passes like Rabbi Shimon, dragging a bench, which won't for sure cause a ridge, is mutter. Davar Shem Miskavin mutter, says the Shulchan Aruch in 32. Shilam Medzayin. V'hu shalo yeh psikresha. Hilkach gora adam mita kise v'safsal ben gedolim ben katanim. Even if there's another choice, ubavajli is kavan latzos churitz, as long as you don't have kavana to make that hole. The Gemara quoted earlier some shitas that are asur, but that's like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would say Davar Shem Miskavin is asur. Good. So the Sharat Tziyun discusses in the next page that where generally, like we spoke before about gzeras, about do you make a gzera washing the floor inside for outside? So what about, is there a gzera in this case? What about dragging a couch in your house, a very heavy couch that if you would do it outside, it would for sure make a ridge? Would you make a gzera like that? Again, by the sweeping case, we paskin no gzeras. The Sefer Truma, yes, but we said lamaisa. If most of the houses have regular floors, we're not gozer. By the washing the floor, we said we are gozer. What about this case? The dragging. So the Sharat Tziyun says that we would not have such a gzera. Umistavra, says the Shar Tzion, 35. If the whole city is paved, even if we're machmir by some type of sweeping, we said the Ramah, or washing, here is even more makel. Right, even by if it's not paved, it's not a daraisa. You don't have a kavana, and the holes might not be good for you. Lamaisa, we paskin that dragging heavy items inside a house is mutter. Right, the Aruch Shabbos says kalim kfei demot. Again, maybe you shouldn't be doing this on Shabbos. The Ramban in Parshas Emor discusses that we shouldn't, even if there's not a malacha, we shouldn't. Dafka say, you know what? Shabbos afternoon we'll have a time to reorganize our living room and move the furniture. You're not doing a malacha there. Maybe you are the Ramban. It's a violation of Shabboson. We spoke about that in past Shiurim. But if you have to move, let's say you had guests over. You had guests over, so you had to move the couches and put out a big table, and then you want to get it back together like it's supposed to be after the Shabbos meal. Mutter. If I drag a bench outside, it's going to make a hole. It's not an isser. Not an isser. No gzeira. Kalim kvedim ma'od. Asher grei rasam al gabe karko sechritz. Ein legorim b'Shabbos. If they're very heavy, I shouldn't do it outside. I feel my karka merutzefes. I shouldn't do it outside, even on paved. Like we spoke about sweeping. Gam kein ein legoram. Aval mutter legor kalim elu b'toch habayis. But inside a house is not a problem. Kivan shabiyamenu kol batim rutzafim. All of our houses are paved, and therefore it's not a problem. Where might this come up? What about pushing a stroller or a wheelchair? A stroller or a wheelchair on we just said you shouldn't drag something outside, so about even on a sidewalk. So you might say tzorech gado. Okay, what about on a dirt path? Could you push a wheelchair or a stroller on a dirt path? So Rav Avadia says yes. Rav Avadia says yes for a number of reasons. That might even be psik reisha. Might even be psik reisha. You're for sure. So if you know not for sure, then it's a pretty strong path. Maybe you won't make ridges. Then fine. But what if you're going to make ridges? Says Rav Avadia, and Yechavadas Beis Nun Beis, Greira Sagal Agabi Offer of a Chol, dragging the stroller, Eino, Begeder Psik Reisha, Batzias Charitz, Umutalov Ila Bershad Rabbins Mutter. Why? What if it's Psik Reisha? Says Rav Avadia. Number one, Psik Reisha. It's a Psik Reisha. You don't really care about these ridges, so at most it's lo ichpas le. Might not be lo nichale, maybe, but at least lo ichpas le, you don't care about it, so at most it's an issa d'Rabbanan. We're not talking about a daraisa here. And you're not doing it in plowing in a normal way, which makes it a shinui. So it's an issa d'Rabbanan, aydei shinui, a double d'Rabbanan. Double d'Rabbanan in this type of circumstance. Shvus to shvus b'makom onek Shabbos, b'makom going to shul, that would be mutter. Says the Rav Avadia. L'chor yesh bakom lamar jo dafka k'shmov zagal b'kav yashar, b'chulu, nitan hem zleim shagam bazeh eker lahatir. It's mutter. Again, even if it's psik reisha, paskins, it's a psik reisha delo ichpas leya most, because it's not your yard. It's not going to make your yard even better for planting. It's psik reisha. It's Rishas Harabim and Rishmir Shabbos. Rav Ribiat also say pushing a stroller even on earth and sand is mutter. He says that in the last source on page 274. Okay, this takes us through this next shiur of again the sixth shiur called Shiur Vav in our volume. Next time we pick up with a shiur all about hachana. The Isser of Hachana from Shabbos till after Shabbos, and then we'll get into the last shiur in this volume as we continue our march in Hilchos Shabbos.